in collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
This week's programme is all about culture, because the Kypria Festival is underway and continues for the next several weeks.
We say this must be included because it's very important to have it in our festival, because of the quality, because of the aesthetics, because of the name, and because of the fresh approach of something. And maybe people are not so familiar with some kinds of art, like for instance we have these performances of Romeo Castellucci, which are not in the box of the traditional theatre, it's out of the box.
And the Cyprus Symphony Orchestra is heading across the island for outreach concerts.
Villages which are further out and which at this time of the year particularly have nice places, outdoor places to offer, and the weather and climate is already that mild that we can survive and perform outside.
Summer holidays are over, everyone's back in town, and culture vultures are looking forward to the next few weeks, because once again it's the Kypria International Festival, which kicked off officially last weekend. And we're joined on the programme this week by the artistic director, Andy Bargili. Andy, before we go into all the events that are coming up, can we look behind the scenes at the job of an artistic director when you're putting together a festival that includes so many different genres in different languages perhaps, and you're trying to bring international artists, but you're also very much wanting to include Cypriot artists in the programme. So when you start planning, what's the first thing you do?
Well, it's a very complicated procedure, obviously, and it takes a lot of time to put things together. First of all, we ask for people, groups, artists and agents to make proposals. And at the same time, as from this year, the artistic director has the option that he can also approach somebody and make a proposal, or can cause a cooperation or collaboration with some artistic companies to produce something that he likes to have.
So let's just clarify that. It means until now, and this is what, the 26th year that this has been going on, I think?
27th maybe? I don't know, 26th, 27th. Yes.
So until now it was up to people who wanted to participate to approach you and the organisers.
Yes.
And now you can actually go out and approach other people.
Yes.
What difference has that made?
Well, quite a big, because as you mentioned before, we are trying to have some international artists of renowned and very famous and such things. Usually you don't expect that somebody like Romeo Castellucci or Tierney Sutton will just come by themselves, because they heard about Kypria International Festival in a tiny, small country, Eastern Mediterranean, and so on and so on. So sometimes you have to pay more efforts towards this direction to succeed and to include in the program some big names. At the same time, you cannot exclude somebody who would like to make you a proposal, because we have to be open on any new idea coming. Sometimes there are brilliant ideas coming from Cyprus or from abroad.
Presumably you get more proposals than you can accept as well, because I suppose there are financial constraints, and then you have to make sure that it's not all dance or all theatre or all music, and there's a mix.
We have to have a balance in the program, so trying to include almost all kind of performing arts. Also, it's a very difficult procedure to go through all these proposals and ideas that you have in hand. This year we had something like 215 different proposals, and we chose 14 productions. So actually 200 were not included. Not because they were not good, but because, as you mentioned before, we have to have a balance, a nice combination, and always trying to keep up the quality and the aesthetics of the performances to the highest possible level.
What about the inclusion, which I'm sure you have to do because you want to keep that mix of genre that are perhaps not so popular with audiences? Because you also have to cover your costs.
Yes. Okay, this is not, the policy is not to cover our costs, but not to spend more than we can afford. What do I mean with this? Is that we are having a subsidy from the government of almost 500,000. We don't want to get this 500,000 back, but over this 500,000 we have, let's say, another 200,000 euros of expenses, the rentals of the theatres and the venues, some other expenses. So this we have to take back. So we never think that we have to include this because this is going to bring us money. We say this must be included because it's very important to have it in our festival, because of the quality, because of the aesthetics, because of the name, and because of the fresh approach of something. And maybe people are not so familiar with some kinds of art, like for instance we have these performances of Romeo Castellucci, which are not in the box of the traditional theatre, it's out of the box. Yes, we have to do it because we educate people, we prepare people to accept new ideas, new approaches, more contemporary productions. And this is very, very important. So we are not looking on the festival and its program on a commercial basis, not at all.
Right, now let's talk about this year's programme. As we said, it started earlier this week,
Yeah.
so we've missed a couple of things, but there's so much coming up. Where do we
Yes.
start? Today is Friday.
Today is Friday.
So let's start looking at either tonight or from the weekend on.
Okay, this Friday we have the Kafka production from Orient Dance Company from Paris. It's an Iranian artist, Mehdi Farajpour, a fantastic one, who lives in Paris, and he based his production on the Metamorphosis of Kafka. And it's a combination of dance, contemporary dance, and projections on the floor, and it's an interactive relation between the multimedia and the dancer. And we have also Tierney Sutton, the famous Los Angeles-based jazz singer with her band in both cities, in Limassol and in Nicosia. And then we have an open to the public children's event named Thretanelo. It's made and prepared by Dimitris Baslan, a very famous Greek artist, musician and director. And it's a combination of puppets, music, dance, and it's addressed mainly to the young audience as from 3-4 years old, but it's for the family as well. And then we have some theatre productions coming from Greece. It's The Broken Glass of Arthur Miller, made by Aspa Kagliani and starring Yannis Gouros and Panayota Blandi. And we have also then another theatre production from Cyprus, Lorenzaccio of Alfred de Musset. It's directed by the famous Greek director Yannis Iordanidis, but it's a Cypriot production by Dionysos Theatre. And another theatrical production we have in our program is the Comedy of Errors of Shakespeare, directed by the very, very good Greek director, Mrs. Katerina Evangelatos, and it's a very attractive, a very, very fresh look on this nice comedy of Shakespeare. And also we have music from Vienna, with some opera soloists and a small ensemble, and with music of Franz Lehar, Strauss, and all known Viennese music. Over and above, we have another one children's play in Greek. It's The Arrow That Does Not Hurt by Vasilis Mavrogeorgiou, and it's directed by Marios Theocharous. It's a very nice story with multi-level messages to the young people about friendship, about acceptance and all these things. We have also the famous Andrei Gavrilov, a fantastic Swiss-based, of Russian origin pianist, who is going to give a recital with works by Mussorgsky and Liszt. And we have also a combination of contemporary dance and music, Per Gynt, which is based on Ibsen's wonderful play, and on the music by Grieg. And it's choreographed by Fodis Nicolaou, and on stage we have two musicians, one piano, four hands, is Manolis Neophytou and Anita Tomasevich, and of course some more dancers. That's more or less the main stream productions, but we have another one coming from Berlin. It's an Israeli actress, designer, directress, Mayan Jungman. She has prepared a fantastic show, no words. It's only, he plays with papers. It's named A Paper Tale. And it's about an author, a writer, who has no inspiration, and she sits behind a big table with a lot of paper, smashed paper and so on. And suddenly all this start having life. Puppets, birds, a sun, clouds, rain, all from paper, and it's really magic. It's wonderful. It's addressed to any age, as from 7 years old. That's more or less the rest of our program this year.
It runs through until when?
It's until it started on the 1st of September, as you mentioned before, last weekend, and will last until the 10th of October.
So there's plenty of time for people to find out. Now, where can they see a full programme so they can plan what they'd like to attend? Because as you mentioned, it's not just in Nicosia.
It's not just in Nicosia. Mainly it's Nicosia and Limassol, but also we have performances in Paphos, Larnaca and Derinia. So they can visit our website. It's www.kypria, kypria.org.cy, and they can see the whole program. Through our website, they can just click on the image of tickets, and they can go directly to the platform where they can buy their tickets electronically.
Are there limited tickets in, for example, Derinia is a smaller venue, I take it. So how soon should people get their tickets if they're desperate to see something?
Yes, the soonest the best. First of all, they can get better seats. Also, some venues are really small. For instance, this Paper Tale, it's only 100 seats for each performance, so they have to rush and choose and buy their seats. And the soonest the best, of course, always. If you want to have a good seat, and our tickets are so cheap because they are sponsored by the government, so we don't ask for big money. It's only for €6 price for the pensioners, for the students, and 12 euros normal. We forgot to mention Romeo Castellucci's production of Julius Caesar fragments based on Shakespeare. It's a very, very modern and differently approached performance, as only Romeo Castellucci can organize and produce, and is going to be performed in a very special place because he don't like theaters. It will be performed in NIMAC, the Nicosia Municipal Art Center in Old City. This is also very limited places for each performance, not more than 80 to 90 places.
And how many times is it going to be performed?
6 times. 6 times in 3 days. It's 2 performances every day. It's 1st, 2nd and 3rd of October. It's something not to be missed if you are looking or seeking for something unusual.
There's lots of things then to choose from. That is Andy Bargili, who is the artistic director of the Kypria International Festival, and it all kicked off earlier this week, but it does continue till the beginning of October, so check out kypria.org.cy.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
In collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
The biggest achievement of Crime Stoppers has been the ability of the public to be able to give information about crime anonymously.
There's no way I could have kept prostituting without the drugs. There's no way I could have had my body used like a public toilet, because that's actually what prostitution is.
And then the 4th series I started 3 days after I'd won the Oscar, so the whole of the Monarch of the Glen experience was all interplatted with the Gosford Park Oscar experience.
I was working with Ronnie James Dio, and David was going to reform Whitesnake in 2003.
Cyprus was chosen because Cyprus is a stable, peaceful and secure place.
We have to really look closely. What are we doing with children? What are we doing with adolescents? And what are we doing with adults that can help them move into a more literate situation?
The ones that I'm proudest of are the ones that were true discoveries, where we found something we didn't know existed.
Monday sees the start of the Cyprus Symphony Orchestra's next season. They're going to be doing the neighbourhood outreach concerts, and joining us to tell us all about it is their maestro Jens Georg Bachmann. Jens, you've had a break over the summer, which I'm sure the orchestra deserved, and I know you went and saw your family in Europe, but you're back now with a very busy time coming up in the run-up to Christmas. But these outreach concerts, I think, are something that have become very popular because it's a great idea that the orchestra goes out to meet the audience rather than expecting the audience to make the effort to come to a theatre to hear them.
That's exactly right, Rosie. And we really want to go into places where we find audiences which are not able to come to the major cities in which we regularly perform. So that's the idea. And not only that we perform outdoors in Nicosia, where everyone can hear and reach us for free, but also that we go to Perestorona, for example, villages which are further out and which at this time of the year particularly have nice places, outdoor places to offer, and the weather and climate is already that mild that we can survive and perform outside.
Yeah, because in the height of summer, of course, pretty difficult, isn't it, for an orchestra to play when the humidity is high, the temperature's way up there. But I'm sure that there have been occasions when maybe the air conditioning in a theatre isn't working. How do they get over that?
Well, it's two things. This might happen sometimes, and it did in the past, that we had too high of a temperature on stage because the air conditioning wasn't working, or other things that we didn't have enough light, for example. Well, I have to say I commend and I'm very grateful to my musicians of the orchestra because they do the hard work and they compromise. They simply grin and bear it, and they don't want to disappoint their audiences. So even if you're sweating as hell or you almost can't decipher the music anymore because you don't have enough light, you try your hardest. And I think what drives us all and still and forever is our passion. And this is what we always want to share with anyone who wants to hear us.
So tell us about the programme that you're taking on this particular series of concerts. We'll get to the venues later because I think you're even going over to Polis in the far northwest of the island. So you're travelling all around the country, and I think as well you've got some that are not evening concerts, and that too is for some people much preferable, particularly perhaps older people who don't like going out at night.
That's true. We try to adjust to the audience's need. So September time is really the time when we can reach out, when we can compromise any kind of performing venues in terms of, as we said, climate or other things, but also the performing times. The program, Rosie, is comprised of two pieces which blend very well with one another. We gave the program the title Spellbound and Nostalgic, and it has the reason that we perform a few works which have been written by the Romantic composer Felix Mendelssohn for Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. So there's a little bit of a reference to still the summertime, like the late summertime of Cyprus, whereas in other parts of Europe we already have reached far into fall. But here we have we're enjoying the warmth. And for that Midsummer Night's Dream, that is a play or a drama by Shakespeare, which doesn't have a twisted plot, but still it has many characters, and there are several of them who have all their different agendas going on.
And it's a romance as well,
yes,
isn't it?
It's a very nice romance, but it also has a theater play in the theater play, so they perform as they perform. There is somebody who disguises as a lion and somebody who disguises as a donkey. And in that sense, it's funny to see how Mendelssohn incorporated even these events into his music, somehow giving certain sounds of the orchestra to specific instruments, like, for example, the lion's call is in the horn, and other things. So there is a little bit of a story, but not really. It's more, I would say, that the music describes a particular atmosphere of particular scenes in the drama. And for the nostalgia part, we're performing Antonín Dvořák's Czech Suite. Now, I would say it's called Czech because he might have a reference to certain folk tune themes. But the overall music is, I would say, very sweeping and very enticing and very melodic. And there is nostalgia in that way that you can just get carried away and dream away with the unrolling and unfolding of the richness and abundance of melodies. So that's something. And the other thing is that in Dvořák's music we have parts which are fast and exuberant, and other ones which are more on the contemplative side. So there is a lot to discover in an always entertaining kind of way.
How familiar are the audiences at these outreach programs with the music you're playing? Because you've mentioned they're well-known pieces, but if people are not classical buffs, as it were, they go along there because you've come to them and they think, wow, this is different, let's go. Are they easily acceptable pieces of music for those who aren't familiar with them?
Absolutely, they are. This is why they were chosen. But I have to say, almost in parenthesis, though, they were also chosen because we love this kind of music. We love to play this kind of music. We love to perform this kind of music. It's very invigorating and enticing. But to speaking to the audience, yes, these are pieces which are extremely easy to be accessed, and in a way where if I help the audience to understand what the context might be within the story of the Shakespeare drama, for example, or simply to describe up front which kind of musical atmosphere they're going to enter into. That is something which I think will be not just very easy for the audience, but also enticing and enriching as an experience.
So you actually do talk to them first and explain the music before you start playing?
We often do this. I often do this. I like to do this. Sometimes there is the language barrier if we have people who are not as familiar with English as others are. And I don't trust my own Greek, unfortunately. But in some places we have the privilege that someone is there with us who can translate from English into Greek to convey the ideas I would like to bring across to the audience. So there is a communication factor in our musical presentation as well. We just don't go and play and leave. We come, we connect verbally, and we perform. So this is I would say, a holistic concert experience.
So the venues then, we said starting on Monday, and that I think is the morning concert, isn't it? If you wouldn't mind going through the venues, because they're all free concerts, so people just need to know where they are in their area and turn up and grab a seat.
Exactly.
How do you know how many seats to put out?
Well, we have to ask the presenters in each of the venues. They know, and they help us, of course, in advance. But the morning concert is for a foundation in Nicosia for disadvantaged and disabled people.
But it's open to the public as well?
It is open to the public as well, as far as I understand. And it is something that we bring out there as a contribution to that particular foundation in terms of a social experience. That amongst what they do regularly on a work basis there is enhanced now through a musical experience and in a music performance, and with the I would say attractive factor of not just seeing a few musicians perform, but a whole orchestra. And
that's at the Christos Steliou Ioannou Foundation,
exactly.
Right on the outskirts as you enter Nicosia.
Yeah, exactly.
And then after that one, you head off, I think, on Tuesday for an evening concert right the other end of the island in Polis Chrysochous.
That's correct. And that is beyond Paphos, a place where we had been to, I think, once or twice since I've been here. But we have performed an actual evening concert there in 2018 during the Carnival season. Yes, we go all across the island, beyond Paphos, onto the other side of the coast, and perform there. There are a number of people living who are retirees, who enjoy their vacation time sometimes, but most of them are residents. And for them, this will be also, I think, a very heartwarming experience with this kind of program.
Let's switch to the last two, because I want to come to Nicosia on Wednesday, right at the end. But Peristerona, that's just outside Nicosia, in the church square on Thursday. And then I think you're doing the eastern side of the island in Sotira at the Municipal Garden Theatre there on Friday the 13th of September.
That's correct.
So let's come to the Nicosia one, which is on Wednesday in Phaneromeni Square, and that's in collaboration with the UNHCR office in Cyprus. Tell us a little bit about that, taking a step with refugees.
Exactly. This is something which we try to incorporate build into our performance routine, that we also would like to contribute from a musical side to the awareness of disadvantaged people. And if we look at the hardship of refugees in the world, and those ones who come to Cyprus and who find refuge and a home here, and the tremendous ambitious and sincere efforts the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees does here in Cyprus, we thought that this is worth creating awareness. And with that, we had a performance last year on Phaneromeni Square already, and it was very well received. We actually had, at that time, a former refugee performing with us nicely. And this year, we're bringing this program along with another piece by a living Syrian composer to Phaneromeni Square. This is something where we think we need to contribute to the awareness, the embrace of the social efforts of all people who take care of or care for the refugees. And altogether, it is something that we have. The UNHCR presents itself at that event, and it is blended with our musical performance.
And we should also add, for those who aren't aware, that there are, I think, quite a lot of refugee children who've joined a group where they're learning to play classical instruments, and they are hugely enthusiastic. So that's one for people in Nicosia to support. It's on Wednesday at 8 o'clock in the Phaneromeni Square. And that all, I'm sure, can be found if you Google the Cyprus Symphony Orchestra spellbound and nostalgic neighbourhood concerts starting on Monday. Our thanks to their maestro, Jens Georg Bachmann, for joining us on this week's programme.
Thanks for having me, Rosie.
Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.